What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you're watching, however you are following, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify for free, on the iHeartRadio app, or you are putting a face to the voice and you are watching on YouTube. We appreciate you doing that as well. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know why you love me. Let me know why you hate me. I appreciate both. And as always, I will pretty much always answer every single comment that you leave on a YouTube Shorts, that you leave on just a normal video like this one. Either way, I love interacting with you guys here on the Ben Garcia Show. It's been busy lately. You guys have been getting a lot of content out of me. That is because the NBA playoffs are rolling, and not just the NBA playoffs, but some other things going on in the league. And as some of you know, most of my subscribers at least should know that I am a personality on Fox Sports 910 AM here in Phoenix, and I cover the Suns, Cardinals, all things Arizona sports. So I wanted to take some time to talk about the Phoenix Suns, as well as tie it in to what's going on in the playoffs right now, because I think it's really interesting. So let's talk about it. So there's this narrative out there that the Phoenix Suns are dead in the water, that the Phoenix Suns have no chance to complete next year, that the Phoenix Suns are a dead team walking and just basically waiting for their time to come again, for them to matter again in the NBA. And so we were talking about it today on the show, The Drive with Jody Ayler. I'm the executive producer on that show. I will at times fill in for him when Jody is not able to be on the show. And we were talking about the Phoenix Suns, as we do pretty much every day on The Drive on Fox Sports 910 AM, because it's Phoenix Sports. It's what we do. And on the show, we were talking about the Game 1 Western Conference Finals last night, 2 nights ago, whenever you're watching this, between the Dallas Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we talked about after how this narrative of the Phoenix Suns is they can't compete, wallowing in self-pity, all these things that if you're a Suns fan, if you're a Suns believer, if you're a Suns skeptic, all these things that you talk about when it comes to this team, because ultimately the season was a failure. Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker didn't work out in year one. And I preface it by saying year one, because the Phoenix Suns have done nothing but preach cohesion, chemistry, and we should be better off next season. Now, here's what I'll say really quickly about the Frank Vogel firing and about bringing in Mike Budenholzer. I am a big believer of Mike Budenholzer. I believe that is a slam dunk home run hire for the Phoenix Suns, a guy in Mike Budenholzer who can keep guys accountable, who can hold guys accountable, and I love that about Mike Budenholzer. So therefore, I think it is a home run hire for the Phoenix Suns. Frank Vogel, in his defense, he should have never been there. They should have kept Monty Williams another year. There was no succession plan in place. In my opinion, Matt Ishbia listened to the mob, listened to the crowd, and allowed for Monty Williams to be basically publicly executed from the Suns' job, because the Phoenix Suns fan base were the ones who ultimately wanted it done. So Frank Vogel's gone. Mike Budenholzer is in. The Suns have preached chemistry. The Suns have preached cohesion. And so with that being said, at first, when I heard that, Matt Ishbia, if you, again, didn't follow me on the radio, I went after Matt Ishbia when I heard that press conference. They beated their chest, they touted their drums, they basically said, hey, we won 49 games this year. That's one less than 50. If we win a couple of more games, who knows? Maybe we're the first place team in the Western Conference, and we don't have such a tough schedule ahead. And they preached cohesion, and they preached chemistry, and they said that if this Phoenix Suns team does indeed have a chance next year, it's going to be because they had another year together, and it's all about chemistry for this team. And you just wait until this team has a full season on the floor together. For me, I thought that was just complete BS. I thought it was bull crap. I thought they were lying into the faces of Suns fans, and I didn't think it was fair. And then I really thought about it. And I'm not going to give Matt Ishbia or Josh Barlstein, the CEO of the Phoenix Suns, a ton of credit here, because I don't think they thought this far. I think they were doing some real media spinning and trying to turn the very negative season into a positive. And so here's what I'll say about the Phoenix Suns. If you are trying to paint a picture to get excited about next season. If you want to believe in the Suns' 2025 NBA Finals chances, here is the reason why. 1 year ago, the Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns pairing, the Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, but ultimately the pairing of Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns a year ago was seen as a disaster, was seen as a failure. They were bounced in 5 games in the first round to the Denver Nuggets. Another year ago, well, I guess I should say the same year, so 1 year ago as well, around roughly the same time, but about 6 months later, Kyrie Irving was traded to the Dallas Mavericks for Dorian Finney-Smith, a first-round pick, and I believe Spencer Dinwiddie or something of that nature. And the pairing of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving began. And people like me, a skeptic, basically had said, this is never going to work. These guys don't play enough defense. This team is a bad mesh of star players and some role players together. It doesn't work. It will never work for the Dallas Mavericks. So if you want to believe, or if you want a real reason to believe in the Phoenix Suns' chances for an NBA Finals in 2025, here's what it is. The Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns pairing, I guess I should say it like this. If you want a reason to believe the Phoenix Suns can compete for a title in 2025, here it is, and this is the only reason that you can get excited or be optimistic. 1 year ago, the pairing of Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert was seen as a disaster. They were out in 5 games of the first round. Denver ran roughshod all over that team, and the Minnesota Timberwolves looked to have made what was called the worst trade in the history of the NBA. Rudy Gobert was traded for a ton of picks and a collection of talent, as well as Kyrie Irving traded. That was seen as a bad trade for the Dallas Mavericks. The pairing of Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving after half a season didn't even manage to make it into the playoffs. It didn't work. People like me ripped it a new one. So if you're preaching cohesion, and if you're preaching chemistry, and if you're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks as a blueprint for the Phoenix Suns, you could spin it like this. Maybe Bradley Beal, maybe Kevin Durant, maybe Devin Booker, and Mike Budenholzer as the new head coach just needed a year together last season to get to know each other better, to get the chemistry right, to feel out the process. Maybe this is just one of those things that takes a year for them to get in the fold and be a real championship contender. Because if you're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves, whose trade for Rudy Gobert was seen as one of the worst trades in NBA history 1 year ago to date, and if you're looking at the pairing of Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, that was widely speculated as one of the worst pairings in the NBA, that they didn't even make it to the playoffs last year, you can look at the Phoenix Suns and next year and say, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, maybe they just needed a little bit more time together. Maybe they just need to figure out the chemistry. You add one role player into that maybe you swap these couple of picks and Yusuf Nurkic or Nasir Little for and bring in a quality role player. You get lucky in free agency and sign a real vet minimum guy that can come in here and help you. You bring in Mike Budenholzer, who's a real X's and O's guy who has an NBA championship under his belt and is just unequivocally a better head coach than Frank Vogel. And you follow that same roadmap of the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks, and that is how you have real optimism for the Phoenix Suns. They preached chemistry, they preach cohesion, and what better roadmap to follow than the Rudy Gobert trade that was seen as a debacle 1 year ago, that the Kyrie Irving Luka Doncic trade and pairing that was seen as terrible a year ago, as they didn't even make it into the playoffs. And now those two teams are the final 2 teams standing in the Western Conference. So if you want real optimism for the Phoenix Suns, there it is. If you want real belief in the Phoenix Suns, there it is. And it's something you can actually believe in. You can absolutely talk yourself into. Someone like myself who follows sports for a living can say, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, maybe they just needed a little extra time together. And that's totally believable. So if you want a reason to believe the Phoenix Suns can absolutely compete for the 2025 NBA championship, There it is. And look no further than Rudy Gobert and the Minnesota Timberwolves pairing, and look no further than the Kyrie Irving-Luka Doncic pairing from a year ago. Maybe the Phoenix Suns just needed chemistry. And if that's the case, and if the Phoenix Suns figure out the chemistry, and they figure out the cohesion, and they get lucky with an extra role player that wants to sign for the vet minimum, that just wants to compete for a championship, that still believes in this team, and they trade those last couple of picks that they do have for a good role player to come in and help build some depth on this team, and you add in Mike Budenholzer, a real X's and O's head coach and an NBA champion, and that team right there, you can talk yourself into being a legitimate NBA title contender next season. It's a long shot, but also maybe it's not. You could have said the same thing to the Timberwolves fans a year ago, or the same thing to Mavs fans a year ago, and they would have said, yeah, right. Give it a year, let's see it play out, and maybe this team actually can compete for a title after all.